Tim, what's your favorite color?
Green.
Matt, what's your favorite number?
7.
Tim, what's your favorite animal?
Gosh dang it.
I think he's lost the idea of rapid fire.
Come on.
I'm Matt Dittemore.
And I'm Tim Tubra, and we're Entimos Coffee. I grew up in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, Oregon, Washington, and then about 10 years ago, moved down to Northern California, where I currently reside.
Originally, I'm up from the Pacific Northwest up until about 15 years ago. My voyage into coffee actually began probably about 2 decades ago. Professionally, as a professional roaster, it's been about 6 years. Growing up, my parents drank Folgers, and that was kind of what I thought coffee was.
My parents, they would buy the 2-pound, like the full 2-pound Costco bags you could get for 89 cents because it was the cheapest. And that's kind of my introduction to coffee. And then you put a bunch of cream and sugar into it to make it taste somewhat bearable.
And it really wasn't until I got out of high school that I needed coffee to get through college. And so it was really a drug, the drug of choice. And I was going to school in Portland, which is kind of, the mecca of third wave coffee. So I was kind of immersed into that third wave coffee scene without even realizing what it was, or all I knew is what I was drinking was delicious. It actually tasted good. It tasted nothing like, what my mom and my dad drank growing up. It smelled amazing, and it just
wasn't burnt.
No, yeah, it wasn't burnt. It began this insatiable lust on my part.
But then being up in the Northwest during college, was my first introduction to what coffee should taste like. And so from that, just grew a long journey at this point into coffee and where we're at today, and our involvement with roasting.
There's probably a couple different memories that I have, and I think they're separate, but somehow they get twisted into my mind as kind of one event that transpired. I'm an old man, This was 20 years ago. So one of my first memories of just an awareness of what coffee was a trip that I took into Mexico. They asked us if we wanted coffee, and we weren't even sure what they were asking at first, but they took green coffee in a cast iron pan and were roasting it in a cast iron pan over fire. And that was just something I had never even, it didn't dawn on me, where does coffee come from?
Be good.
With the coffee shop scene, during college, I'm out there studying, sitting in a coffee shop, and you're just watching these roasters go to work, on these machines and turning green coffee brown, and then you're sitting there drinking that coffee that that they roasted, a few days ago. So taking that experience and then applying it to when I was roasting for myself at home was when I had an idea of what I wanted to do with the coffee when it was green, and then roasting it at home and then brewing it and getting that result out of that coffee was like the aha moment for me, being able to put that whole process together, planning something out and knowing what I want to do with the coffee. After many failed attempts before that, finally when that one batch came together, it was like, yes, this is coffee.
I was at a different shop, and they roasted a dry processed Ethiopian coffee that when I took my first sip, it tasted like blueberries. And I had never even fathomed that coffee could taste like that. Being in that culture, experiencing those things that just kind of created this drive in me that was like, I need to know more about this.
So we met through a mutual friend who knew that both of us roasted coffee on our own. We both like to fish and hike and camp and hunt and that kind of stuff. So
she tried to hook us up.
Yeah, really
it worked. Way to go, Steph.
Exactly. Gosh, we were all kind of hanging out as a group that night, and we immediately started talking coffee that night, and we were exchanging coffee, and he was tasting what I had roasted, and I was tasting what he had roasted, and so
it's romantic.
Yeah.
Friendship was born.
Yeah, friendship was born.
That's
so.
awesome.
When I was roasting originally, when I first moved to Northern California, there wasn't a lot of roasters in the area. This was 15 years ago. There's just, there's been a huge explosion in the area in the last decade. But 15 years ago, there really wasn't a lot, and there certainly wasn't anything that I was finding particularly enjoyable, having come from Portland. So at the suggestion of a friend, I started roasting probably within a year of moving here. I started roasting and just having fun with it. It originally just, for nothing more than myself. Occasionally we would give, birthday gifts or wedding gifts to people. I'd roast a bag of coffee and give it to them as a gift, and that actually got to be a thing with relatives and, friends. They started like requesting, hey, if we buy some coffee, if we give you money, can you roast coffee for us? So I just was falling in love with the science and the art of roasting. So I was doing that all the time. By the time that we met, we're trading coffees that he's roasted and that I've roasted, and we're critiquing each other and taking notes on each other's coffee and offering suggestions and asking questions, and it just started growing so quickly. We were talking earlier, there was one particular Saturday we were like, okay, we'll set aside Saturday and we'll just roast for all the people that want coffee from us. We're just on this little tiny home dealio, and we roasted for 14 hours on Saturday. My wife at that time basically informed me that would never happen again.
And she still says that to this day.
That was brutal. I had so much fun. It did, like when we were done with that, I felt like I'd worked, a 7 or 8 hour day. We were just roasting coffee and just laughing and talking and drinking and just, drinking coffee. To me, that was. We've had so many great memories, because of just the nature of our friendship.
I think that probably the best thing about being Entimos is that you hope, that your business partner, it will be an enjoyable experience doing business with them, but then also you just integrate so many different aspects of life, especially with just the size of our company and who we are and what we do, and a lot of the other passions that we like outside of roasting coffee, that just creates some great memories.
If we started having conversations and talking about the possibility, well, what if we started a company? What if we, how much would it cost? What do we need for permits? What do we need for equipment? What do we need? How do we do this? And so we just kind of started doing our homework and started talking about it.
And each week was more people were wanting coffee and more people were wanting coffee. So it put an urgency on us to be like, man, we really need to seriously look at taking this to another level.
That was the big jump.
So we bought this roaster kind of sight unseen besides the photos, and we decided, okay, we need to get this roaster, we need to get home and get it cleaned up, and we need to start roasting on this thing because we have orders to fill. So Matt and I grabbed the truck and we drove 16 hours in one day to pick up this roaster, loaded it up, turned around, came back. So we got back into town probably between 1 and 2 in the morning, and we were so amped that we have this new roaster and that it's finally ours, that we unloaded it, we started tearing the thing apart, we gave it this crazy deep clean. It's 3:30 in the morning, and
fired up.
Yeah, we fired this thing up at 3:30 in the morning after we got everything taken care of and it all hooked up, and because we just wanted to see this blue flame coming from the burners. So,
running on pure adrenaline.
Yeah, we were pure adrenaline and coffee, maybe a little in and out to keep the protein levels up. But yeah, that was for us, for me anyway, that was my fondest memory of Entimos and us getting started. So yeah, it was fun.
The coffee that most people drink, that most people have developed a palate for, is not good. I feel no ill will toward anyone who comes into the third wave coffee scene. I think sometimes we have a tendency to cannibalize ourselves. I think we would do better at times to kind of focus on bringing a new awareness. Because, I mean, the majority of people they're just drinking bad coffee, and a lot of them it's because they're unaware of it. They're like me before I had that Ethiopia. They're just like, I've had good coffee, I've had bad coffee, but, it's all the same. I'm grateful for everybody in coffee who's trying to further what coffee is and what coffee can be. We're here. We're here because of companies like Starbucks. I don't think Starbucks has great coffee by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm grateful to Starbucks because Starbucks was what came after, Euban and Folgers and Maxwell House and all of this C-grade coffee, and they took it to another level, and then other people have stood on their shoulders and taken it to a new level. And I think that's amazing. I think that's awesome.
Matt and I are pretty passionate outdoors individuals, so like we had mentioned before, hunting and camping and fishing and hiking and just getting out into creation. As we were reevaluating with Entimos and who we are as a company, we really decided that we wanted Entimos to truly represent who we were as individuals.
I have 2 kids, and I'm trusting that at some point they'll grow up and have kids of their own. I want my grandkids and my great-grandkids to be afforded the same opportunities to hunt and fish and camp and hike that we do today. And so conservation has always been something that's on the forefront of our minds, because that's something that we're very, very passionate about. We just wanted to find a way to be able to raise a little bit of money to help with that.
Wanting to be good stewards of these natural resources that we have, we're taking a portion of our online sales for all of our retail bags and donating to a specific conservation group each quarter. And then ultimately, hopefully, we'll be able to have opportunities to meet some of these people and commingle coffee and conservation. There's a good parallel between our passions for conservation and what coffee is doing as well, and I think that just furthers the conversation and sets our sights on what we want to do with Entimos Coffee. So.
That's cool. Who's the real head honcho of this whole organization?
Define head honcho.
I need to be able to tell him if his coffee sucks.
Yeah. Do you think is there any head honcho?
Yeah, I'm the head honcho.
Yeah.
No, it's like Tim says, I think just the nature of our personalities, we just kind of meld into these roles, and I think we're both very comfortable in who we are. And
Comfortable in being servants.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well said.
Absolutely.
You can find us, best place to reach us is on our website at entimoscoffee.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Entimos Coffee, and
Morgan's Mill.
Yeah, and Morgan's Mill, of course.
Cool. That does it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Nice. That's
Very
so
good.
rep.
I've spent more hours in the tent, with this guy.
Can't say that on me.